worst rights records. The largest Muslim civil rights group in the U.S. denounces anti-Muslim remarks by Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson. Plus, a major international body dealing with stateless people's warning that the current refugee crisis in Europe may create a new generation of children without nationalities. This headlines and much more here on Press TV. Thank you for joining us, everyone. You're watching World News Live here on Press TV. Now, a Geneva-based human rights group has slammed the United Nations for appointing Saudi Arabia to chair a key panel on UN Human Rights Council. A UN Watch revealed that Saudi Arabia's UN ambassador in Geneva has been named as the chair of the 5-member consultative group. It described the decision as scandalous, given that Saudi Arabia has beheaded more people this year than ISIL terrorists. The UN Watch claimed the decision went intentionally unreported by UN diplomats. The Riyadh initially campaigned to head the UN Human Rights Council, but dropped the bid in June following international condemnation of its human rights record. And Saudi Arabia now has the power to appoint experts in countries where the UN has a mandate on human rights. And this as the kingdom is seeking to recruit new executioners to cope with the rising death sentences. And Saudi Arabia has also been condemned for committing war crimes and killing civilians in its ongoing military onslaught against Yemen. And to get more on the story, we're joined out of Vancouver by Mr. Alfred Lambermont Webre, human rights attorney. Now, Mr. Webre, perhaps you can make sense of this. A country with such a horrendous human rights record chosen to head a human rights panel. Where's the logic in this?
Well, the logic stands in the murky politics of the UN, because what had happened was that Saudi Arabia was persuaded precisely because of the human rights record that you mentioned, with the jailing and lashing of Raif Badawi. He was convicted in 2010 to 1,000 lashes just for blogging on freedom of speech. In addition, Saudi Arabia has now put out a bid for 8 new executioners in what's been described as a macabre spike in the death penalty. In other words, it's a death culture. And Saudi Arabia, the fellow there, Trad, the ambassador there, the shameless one, I'll call him, had been persuaded to withdraw his application to head the 47-member Human Rights Council. However, sneakily, the UN gave him, as a consolation prize, the chair to what's called the Independent Panel of Experts, or the consultative groups, where Trad now has the power, and he's insisting on staying. He has the power to select experts, over 75 experts for countries where the UN has a human rights role. Now, let's get to the nub of this that's not appearing in the news as yet. We're talking about human rights. For the annual Raj, Saudi Arabia, in the city of Mina, and I'm looking at wonderful photographs of them, has 10,000 air-conditioned tents that can accommodate 3 million persons. They're used exactly for 5 days annually during the Raj for pilgrims. And for a country that supposedly calls itself Islamist, and the Prophet Muhammad was primarily about compassion, and for Saudi Arabia to have 10,000 air-conditioned tents devoted to Raj that can keep 3 million people and to take 0 refugees, this is a country that has now gone rogue, that presumes, because it has oil in it, that it is above the law. It must be taking instructions from certain other people around the world, some of whom are called Netanyahu. So I think that this Zionist, Saudi Arabian new arrangement of heartlessness, of lack of compassion, where Saudi Arabia can devote 10,000 empty temps with air condition for 3 million people that are kept empty except for 5 days of the Raj, that's a violation of what the Prophet Muhammad said. And I say so here on Press TV.
Thank you, Mr. Webre, for your input. Mr. Alfred Webre, human rights attorney, joining us out of Vancouver.
Thank you very much.
And now, Saudi World.
Thank you so much, Mr. Webre. I appreciate it, sir.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.